Hi everyone, this is Long Vo. Today I'm analyzing one of my games in the Burlington Chess Club. Today is July the 24th, 2012, and I'm playing white, currently rated 1498. My opponent is Stan Percival, rated 1678, playing black. So I start off with e4. He goes c6, so this is the Caro-Kann. So I go d4 and he goes d5. So here I chose the advanced variation with e5 and he goes bishop to f5. Now I develop my knight to f3 and he goes e6, keeping the bishop out of the pawn chain. And now my next move, I don't really know this opening too well, so I just used the basic principles, and I figured I would put pressure towards the center with c4, and hoping that he would take, and then I would develop my bishop with a temple. So he goes d takes c, and bishop takes c4. So here I also have an open, semi-open file for the rook to eventually come here. So he goes knight to d7, and now I go a3 with the idea of eventually advancing the pawns, because here I see an outpost. I was hoping to perhaps advance the pawns here, and before that go the knight, and if he takes, and eventually get this outpost here. Not now, it's still too early because the bishop is still there, but that was my plan. And also with the a3 here, I prevent him from attacking the dark diagonal here. So now he goes knight to b6, kicking the bishop away, and at this point I wasn't sure, because he's not castled yet, so I don't know where he's going. So it seems to me that it's more on the queen side. So I didn't want to retreat the bishop to a2, putting pressure on the f7 pawn here, because there was no guarantee that he was going to go there. So I decided to retreat to bishop to e2, and I didn't want to go to d3, exchanging bishops, and I wanted to keep this the d file open for the queen to defend the pawn here. So he goes queen to c7. I guess here he may have had the thought of getting ready to castle. I didn't see any threats here, so instead of castling, I decided to perhaps do something more aggressive. So I go b4 with the idea of eventually pushing pawns, and by doing this I also wanted to show him that I wasn't going to castle queenside, and that perhaps he would change his mind and try to develop the king side, but then by doing that it slows down his development, and king safety as well. So I thought that pushing the b pawn was my best move, and plus I already played the a3, and doing something else would sort of distract from that and be wasteful, right? So now he castles queenside, which I was really glad, because now I have the semi-open file to eventually attack the king. So because of that, I put off castling myself and decided to go bishop to e3. So here it's really trying to clear the way for the rook, defending this backwards pawn here, which was also a weakness, because once he castled he was adding a bit of pressure there. So I already have my knight and the queen, but I don't want them tied up defending the pawn forever. So by having another defender and opening the c file for counterplay was the idea. So now he felt a bit of pressure there, and he felt that he needed to develop on the king side, so he went f6. So I didn't want to take because he would simply take back and develop with temple. So I go queen to b3, putting some pressure on the e pawn here, which is backwards. And now I had the idea of perhaps doing something to try to go knight to h4 eventually, to try to kick the bishop out so that I could attack the pawn. So now he went knight to d5, blocking the queen, also threatening the dark squared bishop. So at this point I didn't really notice that, and I didn't really care. So even if he took, I was okay because the queen was protecting, or the pawn. So I continue with my development on the queen side with knight to d2, making sure not to block the c file for the rook. So now he pushes with g5. So at this point I saw that he created a backwards pawn here. So I decided to take. So e takes f, and if he takes back with the knight, then I would gain a pawn, and pinning the knight as well. So I was okay with that. Same thing if he takes with the other knight, I'm still getting a pawn. So he saw that, so he decided to take the bishop first with knight takes e3. And at this point I had a dilemma whether to take with the queen or the pawn, but I think looking back, maybe I should have taken with the pawn and opened the f file and then castle. But I felt that I didn't want to disrupt the pawn structure here. But this is a double pawn here, so eventually if I take with the pawn, I'm also defending the d pawn. So I should have taken with the pawn, but anyways I took with the queen. Queen takes e3, and he goes bishop to h6. So at this point I should have felt the pressure and try to castle, but he had the initiative here, and his next threat here would have been g4 with a discovered attack on the queen. So I go queen to e5. I'm not sure if that's a good move, but anyways, I'm blockading this backwards e pawn with the idea of perhaps attacking it eventually with the bishop or something like that. And if he exchanges queens, that's fine. I thought that then I would move, take with the knight and threaten the fork here because the queen is gone. And also there's the pawn here. So after he takes queen takes e5, so looking back, I probably made a mistake here with d takes e5, because now I sort of open up the d file here, and so I was kind of greedy, I guess. I didn't want to give back that pawn, but I should have taken with the knight. So if I did take with the knight, still this pawn here, I didn't like that idea because it would become an open, the rook here would have a way in, but then this would have been like he wouldn't have taken that pawn because now this rook here is hanging. So I'm not sure why I took with the pawn, because if I took with the knight, I'm not sure what he could have done to perhaps go here threatening the pawn and blocking the attack from the knight. Right, so then I'm not sure what I would have done. Perhaps either give back that pawn, right, and continue with development, or I should have castled, right, or even if I attack the knight here, this is not bad, but I guess eventually this pawn here would fall. But this is actually a good thing, because now this rook here is totally blocked off, and the bishop here is kind of awkward, blocking development. So that's what I should have done. So anyways, I took with the pawn, and so this move here is my downfall. So he goes g4, opening the diagonal for the knight and threatening this knight. So I didn't even see this knight, right? So I went knight to h4, attacking the bishop, and he bishop takes d2 check. So this is a learning a lesson for me, because I was putting off castling. So this is what happens, right? So king to f1. This rook here is now totally useless, and I'm down a piece. And so now he goes knight to h6, developing the knight. And I go knight takes f5, with the idea of later on perhaps attacking the, if he takes with the knight, then I would attack here and open up the for my king here for the other rook to develop. But he took with the pawn instead, so e takes f5, and now my bishop is still pretty awkward here, and my king is stuck. This rook is useless. So now the game is pretty much lost. So I go e6 because I think that his next move may have been something like this. Rook to e8, attacking the pawn, and there would be no way for me to defend, right? So over here, this would take, or en passant. And I didn't have any dark squared bishop anymore, and my rooks were too far. I didn't have time to defend it, so I decided to go on a light square where the bishop could defend eventually. So bishop to c3, double attack, right? So another mistake. So rook to c1, because I couldn't go here because of the other rook, and I couldn't go here because of the bishop. So bishop takes f6. So here I went bishop to c4, but I think I should have gone perhaps b5, trying to create some counterplay here. So if he take, well, he can't take. So either he would move, but then he could move here and attack this pawn, and then I would have to take, right? And then it doesn't really help me. But I thought that would have been the better move. So anyways, I went bishop to c4, and also opening an escape for my king. So here bishop to b2, so I should have seen that. I should have known that perhaps to put my pieces on dark squares, on light squares, because he had his pieces on dark squares, making my bishop useless, so I should have done the same. So now rook to c2, putting pressure on the bishop, and if he takes here, I thought that perhaps I would get some sort of counterplay eventually, or over here, and if he takes, then I would have a discovered check. But by getting my rook off the first rank here, this opens up a dangerous check there. I didn't even see that, and at this point I was kind of not very interested in playing my best, and I was just going through the motions, I guess. So I went b5. Oops, sorry. Okay, so rook to c2, then he goes bishop takes a3, and I go b5, and he goes rook to d1 check. So at this point I resigned. There was no point because I could have gone something like this. I don't really have any counterplay. I guess I could have taken this. You could have taken this, or even just left things as they are and try to develop the the rooks. Anyways, I could have taken here. He takes back. But anyways, the game is over at this point.